This is the Bethune-Cookman University Wildcat News Feed on Sirius XM, Radio Channel 142. HBCU, broadcasting from the Wildcat Lab in Daytona Beach, Florida. WELE 1380, The Cat. It's time to hear the good news from BCU.
Good afternoon and welcome to the BCU Wildcat Newsfeed, also known as #TalkTuesday, the place where we get the real, raw, and relevant facts about what's going down on the campus of Bethune-Cookman University and HBCUs all around the world. I am your host, Franshawn Reed Barnes, and you are listening to WELE 1380 The Cat. Before you emerge into the real world after college, there are several steps that you should have taken along the way to ensure your success. What many don't know is that there is a specific department at colleges and universities designated to ensure that students have the experience and access to jobs that will make their transition easier post-graduation. Here to tell us more about career services, what it offers, and how it can help you is Miss Davita Bonner. Welcome.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for coming in to share with us on today. So let's begin by you telling us what exactly is career services.
Career services is a concept that started more than 70 years ago, actually. The workforce trends began to change after World War II. Prior to that time, it was mostly men who entered the workforce. But when people went off to World War II, a lot of American women were basically thrust into the workforce. And as a result of that, you begin to actually hear the coin at that time of career development. And what that is and was is it allowed people to take interest inventories. It allowed people to go and shadow to see if they liked certain careers or if they were interested in certain positions. And it got more people out of their households. And so because of that, theorists and researchers began to do more towards looking at careers and the importance of them in our society.
Now, why is career services important on college campuses or even HBCU campuses?
Career services is really one of the most important factors of the college experience because when a student pays to come to college, at the end of those 4 years or 3.5 years or however many years it may be, they're looking for that golden caveat, which is initially that position.
Yes.
And so that's what all students should be striving for, whether it is for a career or graduate school. And so that's why it's most important, because that's the end goal for when one enters college.
Now, what steps should students take during their matriculation to pave a path of success after graduation, i.e. networking, internships, etc.?
We recommend that students begin the career process as soon as they can. So now we reach out to students in their first year of matriculation. And so we offer workshops such as resume building, networking, understanding how to apply for jobs, and also mock interviewing at that time, because there are many companies now that offer internships and positions for first year students.
Wonderful. Now, as a freshman, what should they do to get involved? So they've gone through new student orientation. What's the first ask they should make of career services?
We recommend that students, when they're first getting to college, that they utilize some of the skills and the programs that they had in high school. But we also encourage them to kind of hit the ground running by either volunteering for many of the campus volunteer projects that are coming out. And usually right after orientation, you begin to hear of a lot of volunteer opportunities. And we encourage them to do that because that helps build the resume and also assist them in developing skills that they may feel that they don't have.
Wonderful. Now, there's a popular saying that says, it's not what you know, but who you know. Do you agree with that? And how do you share this with students in career services?
That still rings very true. That statement still rings very true. The more that you network and the more people that you know, we encourage students to keep in touch with people. And we also encourage students to develop their own business cards, especially juniors and seniors. That way, if you're meeting someone out in the community or even if you're meeting another person on campus, you aspire to connect with that person and continue to do so. And we have had quite a number of students who have obtained opportunities as a result of networking with someone, whether it's an alum or a community leader or someone on campus.
Wonderful. Can you share with us some tips on how to network? So take me through a speed class of how to network.
Networking for many is a difficult situation because I think sometimes people feel like they may be shy and they don't want to reach out to people that they've never interacted with before. But once you get the hang of it, it's relatively easy. It involves just making sure that you have that standard greeting and that you find out from that other person what interests they have and what are some of the things that they're aspiring to do. And as a result of it, it becomes easier and easier and easier to do. So we have held networking receptions, and we also do mock networking projects to engage students in meeting a stranger for the first time and how to go about doing that and what are the words to say. Because sometimes, it is very difficult if you're encountering someone for the first time and you may be talking to that person and they don't seem very talkative and you don't feel as though you are. But once you start doing it, the more you start doing it, the easier it becomes. And most people who fall into that category, most of the students who are a part of the networking base, they've networked with hundreds, some of them already thousands, based on not only individual circumstances, but social media networking too.
Now, you just brought this up. You said social media. Talk to us about how you train the students social media wise on how to put themselves out there and how to set themselves up for a successful career.
Okay. Social media is very involved in the career development process now because most of the positions that you see available are now online. They're on things such as Indeed. Occasionally people put positions on LinkedIn. They put them on, Florida Jobs, all kinds of websites. And students generally apply for those. And I think the one concern that many have is, well, I sent hundreds and thousands of resumes, but I don't get an answer back. And the reason is there's hundreds and thousands of people also applying for the same job. But with social media, we also try to let students know about their own personal social media and how keeping that on the straight and narrow is important, because sometimes the things that are on those sites can harm a student. And that is one session that we focus on quite a bit, because if you're applying for any position now, but especially if you're applying for a government position, you need to make sure that your Facebook is clean on all the other media things, your Instagrams, because you never know. Generally, most of the major companies now do look at those. And I've had students of mine who, came back for a second and third interview and they were requested to log on to all their social media sites. And lucky for one of them, a few years ago, she had cleaned up all of her sites when she logged in, and she had taken a course in doing that. And that saved her because she had something on there that had been negative. And if she wouldn't have taken a particular course and got that removed, she may not have gotten her offer. So we try to let students know that when you say things on social media, and sometimes the company you keep, it doesn't seem like it's a big deal at the time, but if you're wanting to be an attorney or you're wanting to be somebody working in corporate America and you've got pictures on there that are not becoming, it can later affect you. And we've had that happen with people. They've actually haven't been able to get opportunities or they've lost them. But we are working through that now. There are some sites and there are some recruiters that work with people to give them a chance to go back and, retract and rebuild again.
That's great. So if our audience is concerned about something that's been on their social media pages, there are definitely resources out there to tell them how to go back and find those posts from 3 or 5 years ago. Okay, wonderful. Now, you mentioned having your social media on the straight and narrow. So we talked about pictures, but what are 2 other tips that you give students about their social media? Like, you may want to go back and take that down.
A lot of times people tend to argue on social media. It may be a very petty argument with another friend or maybe with somebody else that's in an organization with them. And rather than sounding off individually to that person, they may put it on social media. And then some also profanity. A lot of times people get upset and they use profanity and I've known some people that use that and they were looking for jobs and then when, things didn't happen. Well, that's a buzzword that you were cursing someone out. And one told me, she said, I would have never thought of of that. She said, I would have never thought that might have been why they didn't select me, but it ended up being the case. So what you say to people on there in pictures. And a lot of times in corporate America now and in education, your surroundings, there have been people in some other entities that have not, been able to acquire jobs or kept jobs because they were at a simple function where it may have been alcohol or something else served. And in some cases, that with some entities does not fly either. So a lot of times you'll see people when they do go out and socially engage, they're very particular and they're very careful about who's taking pictures or what they're doing, because that there have been some cases nationally where teachers and other people were fired, and some of them weren't even. I think there was one case, I don't remember which state, but there was a lady that was on a vacation, and she was seen, I think, drinking something or coming out of a bar, and as a result of that, that person lost their job because of that. And
Wow.
and a coach somewhere too a few years ago, there was something. Someone took a picture of her at a party, and it wasn't even her intent to have, I guess, the paraphernalia that was there, but it was in one of the pictures, and because of that, I think, I can't remember her name, but she was going around the country doing a social media rebuild workshop. So little things like that sometimes that we don't think about.
Now, the final question I have for you regarding social media, considering the political and racial climate
Yes.
in America today, expressing your views on such things, is that something that could prevent you from receiving a job?
In some cases, it can prevent you from receiving a job and also keeping one. I know with the recent Charlottesville incident, there were some people who were participating in that, and they were released from jobs for simply, being a part of that. Some of the people who were marching and, expressed the white supremacy and things like that, there were some that were, their companies were like, oh, no, we don't condone this. And so it can be, and politically, it always is dangerous because you don't quite know. If you don't know the corporate culture or the culture wherever you're working to, you have to be careful of that because, sometimes people are voicing opinions and things, and you don't know that company may be owned by somebody of another party or, another means different from yours. And so that there have been cases since that's been happening. There are a lot of people who have lost positions or been demoted as a result of stating, and it's happened frequently, I think, with teachers, again, for some reason, in recent ones. They made statements because they felt it was free now. They could say what they wanted to say, and then later, of course, their school systems and other people may not back them up in those cases.
Now let's move forward. What is an elevator pitch? That's a term I hear all the time. Do you have an elevator pitch, that 1 minute thing that you say, or 30 seconds that gives you an opportunity to introduce yourself?
The elevator pitch should consist of, and it only is, like you said, a few seconds and a few minutes, but you should state what you can about yourself in that amount of time. And usually you start off with your name, and if it's a student, your name, your major, and what one of your aspirations is. And then from there, that other person generally will, request more. But it can be very impressive and can garner, a lot for you. But we practice with students. That's very important to practice because you never know. And the reason they call it elevator speech is just you're meeting someone.
Right.
No matter where. And I guess they equated elevator because that frequently happened when people were starting jobs and working at businesses. They were in the elevator with other colleagues.
Now, I'm going to put you on the spot for our audience. Can you give us your elevator pitch?
My elevator's pitch, I will give you one in probably about 20 seconds. My name is Davida Bonner, and I'm the Director of Career Services at Bethune-Cookman University, and I aspire to educate and implement career development for students and to share with them things in the community and globally and assist them in obtaining careers.
That is awesome. Now, do you hand the person your card before or after?
Usually, I will hand them the card. It depends. If they reach for it first, but in many cases, I'll do that first and then, or as I'm giving them the speech too. You can do it as you're giving it as well.
Great. True or false? The earlier you get involved in career services, the better.
True. The earlier you get involved, and what happens is now the changing trend has been to start early. In fact, career development and career services are now being introduced to middle school students. That's how important it is to try to obtain employment. They are starting now at that level with educating students about what they want to do with their futures. So by the time they get to colleges and universities, we're hoping by that first year to help them, move on to the next track, not be undecided for too long, and assist them with, exploring careers and networking. And it is important to start the first year. 20 years ago, you could have waited till you were junior or senior because, if you had that piece of paper then, 20, 30 years ago, more than likely you were going to find something. But as a result of, more things happening globally and more people going to college, now it's very competitive.
Is there any career that you see being phased out?
There are some careers, as far as pay wise, you hear people say, well, a lot of things dealing with human services. And there really is a need for human services and should be more of one. But in some areas, those positions aren't as lucrative as they used to be.
What areas or careers are you seeing a higher demand in?
Well, STEM fields. Yeah, the STEM fields, people who are majoring in science, math, and engineering fields. There are tons of opportunities. And also education and business, of course. And sociology and those others, there are opportunities there, but a lot of the students tend to go on to graduate school to do the research aspect where, it can be more profitable.
Now, what happens if you have a student who has dedicated 3 to 4 years of their life to this one career, studying this one career? They get to graduation and they're like, I don't want to do this anymore. What do you say to them?
With those students, and we have them coming every day. In fact, we had one yesterday and that had a similar story with that. And we encourage them to look at themselves through career exploration. What are some of your likes and your dislikes? What are some of your goals? And what do you really, truly want to be? And that's one thing we ask students that first year because it makes a difference. You have to want to be in that particular career, and oftentimes parents will, and other people are influences in how a person selects a career, So mom or dad may want you to be a doctor, but you don't like biology, you don't like chemistry, you don't like math. And so when your grades reflect that, then we have to help you to find other alternatives. And sometimes that happens with people, they go all the way through a program of 4 or 5 years and then they find out, I really don't want to be this. What do I do now? But there's always hope because usually they're introduced to something that's of interest to them and, we're able to assist them in finding their true goal and what they want to be.
Now, are there any quizzes out there that help people identify what field they would be good in? I believe I've heard some. Do you all do that?
Yes. There are some. There's one called Holland's Self-Directed Search, which is one. There's also the MAPS test. Some of these are online that students, can do, at their own leisure. And then there's one called ONET, which is one we frequently recommend and use. That's through the Department of Labor. And that clearly outlines, what position a student may be interested in, what the job description would look like, what education path they need to follow. And there's also one portion of it that lists what the salary would be in the particular state that the student is interested in working in.
Oh, that's great. That is outstanding. Now, what are some events that you all hold at BCU to help expose students to different careers or different companies that operate in their field?
We have 2 career fairs a year on campus. We have a fall career and graduate school fair, and we'll be holding one of those on tomorrow from 1 to 5 in the CCE. And it consists, we put it together with both because it is a little bit easier that way. Previously, we had been separating them some years ago where we did a fall graduate school fair, and then in the spring we did the career fair. But now we try to have both on campus at some point in time. And so students gain exposure through that. And, and all classifications can come. We focus, of course, on juniors and seniors, but there are instructors who send, some freshmen and sophomores and juniors to see what to look forward to. And many of them are able to still get volunteer opportunities and internships.
Is anyone ever hired on spot at these?
Yes, and in fact, on tomorrow's at tomorrow's career fair, the day after, there are some recruiters who will be remaining on campus to interview students.
That's great.
On Thursday. So, but there have been some students who have been selected for positions, and based off attending the fairs. We've had some students that were just in the right place at the right time. I had a student several years ago who wasn't even down for an interview. We had the recruiter on campus, and he wasn't even dressed for the interview. We require that students dress professionally for the fairs and interviews. And this particular student was not dressed that day. So I received a call saying that he was in a location on campus and he was with the recruiter and he wasn't dressed. And so they sent him to my office, and I was, who would do this? And ironically, that student had on a polo shirt that day and some shorts, but he was selected to go to Chicago, Illinois to talk with a company. He was recruited to go there. And although he had not interviewed, the recruiter was impressed with him because she needed assistance with her computer and she needed assistance setting up. And he happened to be right there in that building, and he introduced himself and told her about himself and helped her set up and helped her with a computer. And so he asked, "Can I give you my resume?" And she was like, "Sure." So she called me and she said, "I know he wasn't on the schedule and I know he wasn't dressed, but she said, I just thought he was awesome." And so as a result of that, he was hired by a major company, still is working with that company today as a corporate executive.
Wow.
Just by being in the right place and being helpful to someone.
That is great. Now, what are some partnerships you all have with other companies? Like, what companies can we expect to see at these career service events?
Inroads. Inroads is a partnership we've had for several years. And what that is that's a corporate entity that focuses on preparing minority students for, Fortune 100 and Fortune 500 companies. And they generally start the internship process the second semester of their freshman year, so students can start applying for that as freshmen.
Okay.
And they are sent to various locations to work in corporations. So that's one of the companies. Charles Schwab is another opportunity that we have available for students. And in fact, now we have, I believe, 6 of our students who were selected for the College to Careers program. And what that is, Charles Schwab offers that program. And these students are selected to participate for 4 to 6 week training every Saturday morning in the Orlando area at the corporate Charles Schwab. So they just completed their second weekend of doing it. But Charles Schwab came to our campus and offered that to our students. We had a information session, and those selected are part of that. So that's going to look very good on their resume. And UCF is also the other partner school that was selected for that. So it's our school and their students.
Okay. Now, can you share with us one more success story that has come out of career services? We just heard one. Can you give us one more success story?
I have one, and I'll actually share 2 short ones. Last week there was a young lady who came on campus, Dr. Joanna LeBlanc. And she is an attorney, a graduate of Indiana University Law School. When she was at Bethune-Cookman University, she was very diligent in coming by the Career Center. Always came by, whatever programs we had, she was there. And so she was very much, working on always doing the resumes, attended everything. And we had at that time a graduate partnership with FAMU, and it was an inaugural partnership, and she was one of the first people selected for that. And so even though her desire was to go to law school, she didn't go straight to FAMU Law School. She went to Tallahassee and received a master's there and worked as a graduate assistant. Then later went to law school at Indiana University, and now she's working for the federal government in a position, a very high-ranking position, and decided to come back last week and serve and share with other students how she got where she is. And so she's one of them. And we also have we have quite a few. We have some alum, Akil Israel, whom you've probably heard of, that owns Focus 9 Enterprises here, Kelvin Maynard. There's a lot of names. But most of those people came by the center when they were in school, and they were diligent in doing things. We have another young lady who's working with the FBI in Washington, D.C., and another one working with congressional people. So if they come and they do more, we recommend more than one internship. You know, those who tend to do more than one, they have 3 or 4 or 5 choices, sometimes more. We have some graduates, you know, who leave out with 6, 7, 8 choices.
Wonderful. Now, really quick, are services just offered to students or alumni as well?
They're offered to alumni as well.
Okay, now as we prepare to close out the show, if there is a senior or alum listening that feels like they aren't succeeding in their specific job field because they weren't intentional about engaging career services or networking, what can they do right now?
We suggest that they contact us as soon as they can. And besides myself, Miss Natalie White is our career coordinator, and Ms. Janelle McCall is our associate director, and they can contact any of us via email, or our office is located on the 2nd floor of the Dr. Ann Taylor Green General Studies building.
Well, thank you so much for stopping by the Wildcat News feed today, as well as BCU Talk Tuesday, to tell us more about career services and the opportunities available not just to students, but also alumni as well. And if you are not a Wildcat, we encourage you to reach out to the Career Services Department at your school to see how they can aid you in reaching your career goals. This is Fran Reed Barnes, your host for the Wildcat News feed, also known as #BCU Talk Tuesday, and we will see you next week.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you.